Hello and welcome. My name is Rojak, and in today's video we are going to be discussing a beginner's guide for Restoration Druid. This is more a guide for people who maybe are only just starting to heal, or maybe the healer you're used to isn't quite Restoration, and perhaps you don't really have a solid handle on how it works. We're going to be going over all of that today. Now, we're going to start with talents. I'm just going to go over a quick talent build for just starting out. Like I said, this isn't going to be high level or anything. Like I said, I'm only level 111 here, so we're just going to be doing some normals and LFR, but we're going to be going over talents first, and I'm going to do a quick dungeon run to show you what this is all about and how it looks in practice. So first off, the talent build that I'm currently using, I'm going to go Cenarian Ward in the level 15 tier. Abundance can be useful, especially when paired with Germination, because the double stack of rejuvenation you get applies to Abundance. It can be useful, but I don't normally find myself casting Regrowth a whole lot outside of when I get an Omen proc to reduce its mana cost to 0. Cenarian Ward, I feel, is more useful. You just pop this on the tank. It's only a 30-second cooldown, and it's a really decent chunk of healing. It also applies to your Mastery because of the ward placing its own heal over time on the target. Prosperity, I don't find myself casting Swiftmint a whole lot outside of emergency scenarios, which, if you're mana efficient with your Restoration Druid, which is kind of the big hurdle, I would say, of efficiently playing one, then you shouldn't ever really need to charge the Swiftmint in a dungeon. One should do you if you know your cooldowns and whatnot. So in the second tier, in the level 30 tier, none of these really matter a whole lot. Renewal, I would say you probably don't need, because as a druid, you're already fairly durable, you're mobile, you should be avoiding damage where you can, and you can already heal yourself with a lot of instant cast abilities anyways. So in this tier, I go with Tiger Dash, just to get some more mobility for yourself. Compared to Wild Charge, most of the time in a dungeon you're not going to be casting Bear Form or Travel Form or Aquatic Form, so a good chunk of this talent is fairly wasted in a dungeon. You don't really ever need to get to a party member's location, so being non-shapeshifted, that doesn't really help you too much because all your abilities have decent range already. So Tiger Dash gets you the best mobility, helps you get out of situations where you shouldn't be. It's really useful. The damage you probably avoid by taking Tiger Dash is more than the damage you would heal up with Renewal over the course of an encounter. In the level 45 tier, this is kind of a toss-up between Guardian Affinity and Feral Affinity. Balance Affinity in a dungeon, your group should be fairly close together anyways. You probably don't need to, you don't need that extra 5-yard range, which is fairly minuscule to begin with. Guardian Affinity, if you imagine you'll be taking a lot of damage, which could happen if this is your first time really running a healer and you don't really know all your buttons and where you can move, or if it's your first time through a dungeon, you're still learning the mechanics, go ahead and take Guardian Affinity. Reducing the damage you take, very useful. I'm going with Feral Affinity because I know the dungeons for the most part, and I know what I need to run from. And I don't really end up taking a whole lot of damage outside of unavoidable damage, so the movement speed will do you a little better. Interesting note with Guardian Affinity is that the Frenzied Regeneration of Bear Form, not only does Bear Form itself help you reduce damage further from what the passive does, but Frenzied Regeneration actually applies to your Mastery as well, which means all of your healing will do more healing on you because of the extra heal over time effect. So that could be useful. That's a consideration if you're going into an encounter that maybe you take a little more damage, you need to heal that up, need an extra heal, a spot heal. But for all intents and purposes, Feral Affinity is the most versatile option. It'll help you more than Balance or Guardian will in a dungeon. In the level 60 row, this is completely preferential. Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, Typhoon. It's all kind of contextual. If you know a certain encounter is going to require any of these things, like if you need another stun, or if you need to root, or if you need a knockback, which could possibly act as a silence effect for some mobs that can be CC'd that way. All these have their different tools. I don't find myself using these 95% of the time in any sort of dungeon scenario, so I just go Mass Entanglement, just because I like the flavor. I like the idea of a druid controlling nature and summoning roots and constricting things. So this tier, fairly irrelevant. Just go with whatever you prefer, whatever you think's coolest. Level 75. This tier, It's a little tougher. Cultivation it's a better all-around pick. It's entirely passive, and it gives Rejuvenation another dot when the target's below 60% health. That means your Mastery is going to come into effect again, going to get another decent chunk of percentage added to your healing, make everything more efficient when things are going sideways or when someone takes a big chunk of damage, mostly the tank. Makes your tank healing better, obviously. Incarnation Tree of Life is the other consideration on this tier. It's a really good cooldown. You just heal better, more mana efficient. It's a pretty lengthy cooldown in terms of the benefits that these other two give you. These don't have a cooldown associated with them. But Incarnation Tree of Life, if you know there's a section where your group's going to take a lot of damage, or maybe you're still learning some of the ropes of Restoration, and you feel that you need to have another sort of oh shit button when things go bad, maybe take Incarnation. Soul of the Forest, yeah, like I said earlier, you don't really need to cast Swiftmint a whole lot in your dungeons, or you shouldn't once you're figuring things out. You could take it. It does make your healing more effective if you remember the sequence, but it's unlike Cultivation. It's more active than Cultivation. Cultivation's completely passive. Just if you happen to have Rejuvenation on someone, or if someone gets low, hit them with Rejuvenation just like you would in any other scenario, and your healing's just better. Soul of the Forest, you have to kind of keep in mind, well, after I cast Swiftmint, I need to think, do I need to burn it on Regrowth because someone's really low right now and needs to heal or they're going to die? Do I throw it on Rejuvenation because someone's taken a lot of damage but they don't need to be spot healed, they're not in any danger of more damage? Or to use on Wild Growth because everyone's taken a bunch of damage? It's flexible, but it doesn't really compete, because Soul of the Forest is almost like you would take it for if your oh shit scenarios come up more often. But if they do, Incarnation Tree of Life is going to get you through most of them. It's not likely you're going to have two scenarios like that in the span of 3 minutes. Cultivation, however, completely passive, no cooldown. You don't need to think about the order of your abilities, you just do it. Plus, the healing over time applies very well to Mastery, which, of course, scales very well. So I would say Cultivation is the best pick for this tier. Level 90 tier, this one, I usually go Spring Blossoms most of the time, for the same reason you would take Cultivation. Gives you another heal over time, which means more healing provided by your Mastery, which is always good. And in a dungeon, you're in a smaller space relatively, so you're more likely to hit people with your AoE heal here. It's fairly good size, so if you're fighting in like a tight hallway, you're guaranteed to get the extra benefit from Spring Blossoms here. If your group moves around a lot, if your tank is chain pulling off the wazoo, then perhaps maybe you're better off taking Inner Peace or Stonebark. Stonebark in that scenario would probably be the best one. Because you'd be casting Ironbark on the tank, getting them healed up, making sure they're taking less damage. Stonebark is good for those scenarios, but I don't find that most of my tanks need it. Spring Blossoms, I think, is overall better. Inner Peace, Tranquility just comes off cooldown faster. I almost never use Tranquility in dungeons, but if you really rely on Tranquility, especially when you're learning how to play Restoration Druid, you might find you need that AoE heal a lot more often than you would otherwise. And so you take Inner Peace, you'll be able to cast Tranquility once every 2 minutes. So roughly every other pull if you're going slowly. Maybe if you're not quite geared for the content, whatever the issue is. Just for general purposes for learning, Spring Blossoms is completely passive, a completely passive addition to your healing, makes it more effective without giving you another button or requiring you to use a big cooldown. This is just always in effect, and it's going to be relevant more of the time. The level 100 talents, this is a pretty good toss-up. Photosynthesis, I think, you need to be more aware of where your life bloom is, because like it says there, when it's on yourself, your periodic heals are 20% faster, which is kind of a similar bonus to Flourish here. Just a little, it's more passive and not quite as strong, but it's the same kind of deal. Speeds up the rate at which your heal over time affects heal. But if your life bloom is on an ally, which it should be most of the time, it should be on the tank usually, your heals on them have a 5% chance to cause it to bloom, so 5% chance for your life bloom to do its full healing. That can be useful, definitely. Very strong pick, no one will fault you for taking it over Germination or Flourish. All of these are very good options. Germination's a little easier to use, though you run the risk of running out of mana if you don't know exactly. If you can't eyeball how much Rejuvenation is going to heal yet, then it might be more difficult to determine when you need to pop a second Rejuvenation on someone without wasting mana. Because that's the thing with Druids, with Restoration Druids, is that if you're not careful, you're going to overheal a lot, you're going to waste a lot of mana, and you're going to find yourself running out of mana maybe more often than most other healers would, because with the Druid, all of their healing, 90% of their healing comes through heal over times, so you have to be able to predict damage, and the inflow of damage, and whether or not it's going to stop or slow, who's going to be getting hit, that sort of thing. But a second cast Rejuvenation on a target, very, very good for Mastery. It's a fairly strong heal in Battle for Azeroth, since they increased its healing over time after nerfing Regrowth, getting rid of Healing Touch. So Rejuvenation's a lot stronger than it used to be. If you're just returning to Druid, keep that in mind, because while you're learning, you're bound to waste a lot of mana casting Rejuvenations on targets that don't necessarily need it. I'm still guilty of it now. But yeah, Germination, solid all-around pick. Flourish. This is another oh shit button, similar to Incarnation, Tree of Life. It's really, really powerful. Much more powerful than Incarnation, to where I would say the real toss-up, for me personally, is between Germination and Flourish. Extends the duration of all your heal over time effects on friendly targets, so that it's healing them for a longer period of time, and it increases the rate of the heal over time effects by 100%, so they're ticking twice as fast for 8 seconds. That is a crazy amount of healing. It's essentially, mathematically, I believe it comes out to about quadruple the amount of healing you'd get normally, because it's doubling the duration. Not necessarily doubling the duration, but probably getting around double the duration out of some of your heal over time effects with the 8-second increase, and then it's healing twice as fast. So already, that's, with just the healing rate, that's double the healing you'd get normally. Crazy powerful. Also, the combo with this is usually Wild Growth into Flourish if you need group-wide healing, which, if you need to pop that and Spring Blossoms isn't going to work fast enough, that could be a good alternative for you. Flourish is a really, really strong pick. Definitely tied with Germination, maybe better in some cases where you need better group heal. Photosynthesis I don't really take, because I usually prefer to have my Life Bloom on the tank, like I said. So the 5% chance to cause it to bloom, that's just a single target sort of heal scenario, and I like to be able to heal everyone up at a decent rate. I would usually want to have Life Bloom on myself, but that cuts down some of the healing you get single target, which the tank is the priority when you're healing. So I normally go Germination, get more agency in where your heals are going. Very strong. You could take Flourish as well, but for the purposes of this build, for what I show you later, I'm going to be taking Germination. And I think that's about it for the talents here. So we are going to queue up with this talent setup for a dungeon, and see how it looks in practice. I'll see you then. Alright, so here we are in Freehold. Give me a second to allow my computer to actually load in all the stuff going on. What I normally do when I get into a dungeon is I set the tank as my focus, so I've always got a button to click here if I need to. So in that first pull, what I did was he seemed to be taking a decent amount of damage, so I put Rejuvenation on him, and I hit him with the Life Bloom, which just fell off. Keep an eye on my restoration buffs there to make sure everything's there. I'm doing a lot of overhealing on him. He seems to know what he's doing, so I can probably cut back on healing him super hard for the rest of the dungeon. So I'm just going to focus mainly on the rest of my group here. When his buffs get low, I'll pop him a Rejuvenation or perhaps a Life Bloom now and then. When I get these clear casts of Regrowth, I'm going to take a look at who needs it most, which actually right now seems to be me. I will cast it, and look at that, we got another proc, and we're going to put it on the lowest DPS there. So that's the big thing with Restoration Druids, just making sure you're efficient with your heals, not like when I'm doing just kind of waste mana here. I'm sitting at maximum mana a lot in these pulls, because our group seems to be fairly competent. It's a normal dungeon, nothing particularly difficult about it, everyone seems to know what they're doing. Just making sure people take damage, I'm just going to pop a Rejuvenation on them or what have you. Not a whole lot needs to be done here. always keep an eye that you're avoiding bad shit. Just remember that you're the healer, and the more damage your group takes, the less mana you're going to end up having to use. In these easier dungeons where you're just starting out, it matters a little less because you're probably going to need less healing to cover mistakes. Always make sure you're moving out of the bad stuff when it's on the ground. Keep an eye on, this is a big thing, keep an eye on the rate at which your tank is losing health. And pay attention to what kind of tank he is. If you know how certain classes work, then you know how much you might need to heal them. For instance, with a Demon Hunter here, Demon Hunters have a decent amount of self-sustain. So chances are they won't need a lot of healing. It seems like we pulled a whole lot, so I'm going to go ahead and put my Efflorescence down, heal as many people as I can, focus on whoever's low on health the most, cast Wild Growth when I can, make sure everyone is staying healthy, topped off. Just make sure that people aren't... Oh. Yeah, I got kind of close there, had to pop my Cenarian Ward, give him another load of healing. Now, basically I just spam Regrowth, because I don't have a whole lot of burst cooldowns with this. I'm actually going to pop Tranquility, I believe, here. God, our group is just pulling ads all over the place. This is going to be this is a really unfortunate, big sad pull. But I think we're going to get through it. A couple of hiccups here or there. A lot of bad stuff on the ground. It's hard for my group to stay in any one space for too long. This guy's getting low, so I'm going to hit him with a couple regrowths to get him to a decent level. I'm getting low, so I'm going to do the same thing on myself. Give myself the double rejuvenation from Germination. And go back to healing everyone else. Just keep an eye on everyone's health over here. When I'm playing the game here, I'm rarely looking at the screen in front of me. I'm mostly just paying attention to the health bars over here. Of course, you want to have some awareness of your area going into it. But the big thing is just making sure you know who you're healing, what heal you need to give them. So look at that. With that big pull, I went down to probably around 50% mana. Which is really rare for most pulls. Though it does happen a lot more on Druid because with all the overhealing, without having a whole lot of spot healing, you're more likely to waste procs, especially with people with their own sort of self-healing. A lot of people, when they get low on health, even if you have a whole bunch of dots or hots on them, heal over time effects on them, they tend to panic and use their own self-heals and thus wasting your mana a bunch. Alright, coming around here, taking this pack. Like I said, just keep an eye on the amount of damage your tank is taking. See, with just Rejuvenation, with both ticks, he's staying at a fairly healthy level. I probably just need to renew my hots on him, just cast Life Bloom on him, keep him up. Shaman over here is taking some damage, standing and shoot he's not supposed to, I bet. So we're just going to spot heal him a little bit with Regrowth and a couple hits of Rejuvenation. And now we're ready for the boss. Alright, tank has aggro, so I'm going to hit him with my heals, just so I'm not stealing anything off of him. And like I said before, I'm keeping my eye on my mana up here, the health percentages of everyone around me. But that's because I know the dungeon fairly well. I've run it a few times. And so I know that just at a glance, kind of out of the corner of my eye sort of thing. Oh, I got hit by that there. That was a mistake. But just out of the corner of my eye, I can see if there's a swirl underneath me, I know it's a bad one. Just hold whatever button you used to move and get out of it. See, like there, I got hit by that again. You still occasionally get hit by stuff. But it's not a big deal on normals. Not a whole lot of damage you need to worry about. But once you have an idea of how the dungeon functions, just keep an eye on everyone's health. Roughly get an idea of where everyone's standing. When you're casting Efflorescence, you just want to make sure you hit as many people as possible. Generally, because of its effect on Mastery, because you want to keep the tank topped off, you want to put Efflorescence where the tank is, roughly. Hit as many people as you possibly can, but prioritize the tank in nearly every scenario. Okay, now we're going to be crossing the bridge here. Just a couple mobs, they're not going to hit super hard. I don't need a whole lot. I don't want to waste a proc of my Clarity, though, so I went ahead and I'm just going to use them on the tank just to make sure the extra regrowth heal over time is applied. It's free, so you might as well use it. Generally, when I see people get to around 90, 85%, I hit them with Rejuvenation. More than one if they're taking a lot of damage. Just to do my best not to waste my spells here. Pop my Efflorescence here, because we're going to be fighting in one spot here, and we don't want to pull most of the other mobs. Oh, misclicked. Thought I targeted the tank there, but I didn't. Everyone's doing fine. If you're comfortable enough that you don't think your tank's going to take damage you need to immediately react to, or the group or whoever, you can go ahead and throw in a couple of Wraths on some targets. It's free for you. You don't have to worry about casting mana, or using mana while casting it. So go ahead and help the group out, increase some DPS, if you can. Again, your priority is to heal. You don't need to do damage. But it certainly does help. A lot of the best healers find that they can contribute to DPS as well, and that really helps you push Mythic Keys later on, if you're so inclined. But you don't have to, that's not what this guide is for. Just focus on healing. Tank's getting a little low, a couple people are getting kind of low. I'm going to go ahead and pop Efflorescence here. Going to double hot with Rejuvenation on these targets. I probably didn't need to, but we're doing pretty good on mana here, so not really a big deal. There's my phone, sorry about that. Tank's lost his heal over time, so I'm stunned. Gonna be careful about movement here, because you can pull extra packs. I'm gonna go ahead and pop Wild Growth, because everyone's looking kind of injured, everyone's standing and stuff. Okay. With Wild Growth and a couple applications of Rejuvenation, everyone is doing fine. We recovered from that. It was just a sort of a one-time damage sponge kind of scenario. I didn't have to worry about that damage recurring or cycling forward. Just occasional burst from the mobs, so you don't want to overload too much. You know, use your mana as efficiently as you possibly can. Gonna put Life Bloom back on the tank, because he's staying around the 70%. You want to keep him topped off. You want to keep people as topped off as you possibly can without wasting mana, which is a very delicate balance, and you're definitely not going to succeed 100% of the time. But it's something you can work towards. It's just a general idea of how Restoration Druids work. This is going to be a big pull. I can tell our tank's taking a decent amount of damage, so I'm going to go ahead and hit him with the Iron Bark here, so we take 20% less damage for a few seconds. Gonna hand him a regrowth there, yep. Oh, looks like we lost our Shaman. Gonna Swift Mend here. Looks like he used Reincarnation, so we're gonna throw a bunch of heals on him. Everyone's just taking all the damage now. And I'm getting stunned, so I can't react as well. That's a lot of the that's the issue that a lot of people will probably have when playing Restoration, is that in responses, your responses to hard CC on yourself like that, not a whole lot you can do about it. It makes it difficult to react to difficult situations. It's hard to top people off and respond to situations. If people start getting low and you get stunned, it's a lot like you're just kind of watching them die, unless you precast if you know it's coming. And I probably could have handled that a little better. If I had paid a little more attention to the health bars, I probably could have popped Wild Growth sooner. I might have even used Tranquility, but the only person that died was the Shaman, and he reincarnated for it, which is not ideal. But, I mean, that's why those tools are there. If you die in combat, you can come back, that sort of thing. Don't feel too bad. I do think I could have done better. I probably should have. But it's not the end of the world. You know, it's a normal dungeon. No one really cares too much. As long as you make it through the dungeon, it's a good place to start. Worry about super hardcore efficiency later on. Like here, I'm just wasting Rejuvenation procs to bide my time while I'm healing here. Oh, we got a couple people going down. Go ahead and pop Life Bloom on him. Just Rejuvenation on him. Alright, there's a lot of damage that can be taken by the group here, and a lot of groups don't really pay attention. In normals, people are fairly new. Gotta watch out for that Grape Shot there. People are gonna get hit by several procs that, so that might take more than one heal to really heal efficiently. It looks like the encounter was reset for whatever reason. I'm not certain why that happened. Maybe someone got out of bounds or something. I don't know. But we're gonna have to start again. Got my clarity. I'm just gonna pop it on the tank here. It's free healing. It applies to your mastery if your tank needs it. They usually don't, but better not to waste procs. Okay. I'm gonna put my rejuvenations on the tank here. Gonna put life bloom on the tank as well, and this should be good. Grape shots over here. Run this direction, avoid the damage. And just for safe measure, I'm gonna put wild growth up. Make sure everyone gets some healing down. Just gonna rejuvenation that guy. I'm gonna use my clarity proc to regrowth him. Gonna refresh my heal over times on the tank here. Gonna give this guy one rejuvenation. He should be good for a while. This guy needs a little bit more standing and stuff. I mean, he seems to be playing enhancement. It's kind of hard to dodge some mechanics when you're melee, especially that AoE around the boss kind of thing. I don't fault him too much for it. It's why I'm here after all, just to make sure that kind of damage gets healed. Still though, it is preferable to have people avoid standing and stuff. Got a lot of people staying around. There's that damaging effect on him again. Spot heal him. Keep everything up on people that need it. Gonna life bloom him. Gonna use my clarity proc on this guy. And there you have it. There's a boss down. There's a lot of unavoidable damage, so it's probably tempting when you're first starting off to just say, "Hey, can you stop standing and shit? My mana really hurts," especially as a druid. So it's so easy to just waste mana, just healing people when they don't need it, like I just did before this pull. But like I said, it's normal. It's not high pressure. Gonna go ahead and put my hots back up. Gonna give these guys some healing. Probably gonna give this guy a double shot on my rejuvenation. Gonna refresh my life bloom here. Refresh everything on the tank, I think is a good idea here. Not really getting a lot of Omen of Clarity procs, which kind of sucks, but it's not a huge pull where I need it. Oh, there's one. I'm going to go ahead and throw it on the Shaman that's taking all the damage. Put Life Bloom back on the tank. And just keep an eye out for, if people need healing, how low they've gotten. And we're moving right along here. Gonna go ahead and use my Clarity proc. Just put Regrowth up, put both of my Rejuvenations, and I'm gonna Life Bloom. This is a bad idea to walk through here at the time, but... Oh, someone started the encounter. We're not done killing this Crusher. I'm not super confident in my group right now, so I'm gonna have to get my fingers ready to hit any cooldowns if I need to. Nah, we're fine. We're fine. I worried for no reason there. But I was ready for it. I was braced for it, and that's the thing. Restoration Druid, you have to be ready to react, because all of your healing is reactionary. You really can't afford to waste all this healing, because you don't have a maintenance heal, you don't have a healing touch, or what have you. Healing wave, I believe, for shamans. It's that equivalent of just a decent chunk of healing on a decent cast time. Fair amount of mana, very efficient. You don't have that since the removal of Healing Touch in Battle for Azeroth. So your maintenance heal is Rejuvenation, and for that you have to wait for people to take some damage first. You can't just... It's not mana efficient to just pop it on as many people as possible, but it is very strong with Germination, so we're taking that talent. Here we go. This encounter is just ridiculous. You have to catch this pig, interact with him as he runs by, get all these grease stacks down. No healing to be done here, just try to grab the pig. And there we go. Now we move on to an actual boss. Well, a mini-boss, more like. There's not going to be a whole lot of worry in this next encounter. Small amounts of damage. Gonna have to fix up. Rejuvenation should be pretty much everything I need. Life Bloom on the tank, of course. But simple rejuvenation on the rest of the group should be fine. Alright, here we go. Just gonna go ahead and put Life Bloom on the tank here. And they're doing fine on the Life Bloom. They're probably doing a decent heal. I will give them the Omen of Clarity regrowth proc there. Gonna give them rejuvenation because they're at 95. Gonna refresh Life Bloom on the tank. And this guy's taking a good chunk. I'm gonna go ahead and hit him with rejuvenation. Tank's looking fine just with Life Bloom. Nope. Luckily my Absorb got all that, so I don't need to heal myself. Gonna refresh Life Bloom. And we're gonna go ahead and give him a rejuvenation. Probably didn't need to. But they're doing fine. Mini boss didn't really no cause for concern. Just keep an eye on the field and where everything's coming from. Make sure you don't take damage. Don't be your own worst enemy. Don't take unavoidable damage, so you have to heal yourself. This boss is going to be a lot of the same, just on a bigger scale. More damage coming out. Definitely going to want to keep your two main heal over times active on the tank, which would be your Life Bloom, your Rejuvenation, and your second Rejuvenation if you're still using Germination. It's not super efficient in the first portion of the fight, but you get that mana back pretty quickly, so there's no real cause for concern there. Gonna go ahead and just top off people with a quick Rejuvenation. Can refresh Life Bloom there. He's gonna do the spin move, and if people aren't paying attention, then they're liable to take damage here. Also, these sharks jumping around. I'm gonna go ahead and hit these people with a couple. I'm gonna double up on Rejuvenations, because that ability can do a decent chunk of damage. His spin move, as well as the sharks jumping on people, just like that shark toss. Gonna run from the shark, get as far away as possible. Yeah, shark goes to a different person. Put Life Bloom back on the tank. The tank doesn't even seem to need me too much, so I'm just going to not bother paying too much attention. Gonna heal up the people taking the most damage here. Seems to be the Shaman and the Paladin, which figures, because they're melee. They're up there with the boss, they're getting cleaved. That sort of thing. Give my tank a heal every now and then. There we go. Pretty good fight. Pretty efficient. We did that pretty well. I don't think our mana really dipped below 90% in most of those cases. What am I doing? I'm a Druid. Travel form. Let's not pull that pack here. Wait for the tank to do it. And it looks like Paladin pulled aggro somewhere along the way. Oh, wait, that's the Paladin that just pulled. What the hell is this about? Well, this happens. It's why we're here. When you're healing a DPS that doesn't have the tank mitigations that, well, obviously the tanks do, you're going to want to be a little more proactive in your healing, just because they're going to take more damage. They're going to take it in bigger chunks than a tank would. So maybe when they get to 90%, give them a double shot of your Rejuvenation. The Life Bloom, obviously, because they're the tank in that moment. Alright. Tank came in, took aggro again. It was a fine fight. Okay, looks like some mitigations were used, some self-healing was done. Didn't really need to do anything for that little straggler mob you just saw there. I see the tank is going to ride me all the way across the bridge. I'm not as fast as your average mount here, it seems. I think they were waiting for me to shift form so they didn't have to physically swap out, which is fine. It's amusing. Yeah, it's whatever. If you ever end up taking aggro because the tank hasn't had a chance to hit everything yet, what I would suggest... Oh, hello. Gonna move out of that. I'm gonna pop Tranquility. That was a scenario where all of us were standing in the AoE at the same time, and I got knocked up and couldn't really react to healing quite as well as I would have liked to. I anticipated more damage coming out, and so I went ahead and popped my big AoE cooldown. Which, do take note, your your Tranquility does heal for double the amount when you're in a group, when you're in a dungeon group. Just by virtue of not being in a raid group, your Tranquility will heal double, as listed here, which is very useful. As a healer, keep in mind, look for icons next to people's names that you can that indicate a debuff that you can remove. As a healer, that's kind of your responsibility. Your job is to remove debuffs that you can. Just going to focus on healing for now. Sometimes it's a big deal to dispel certain things. But for this dungeon, for normals, not a huge deal. Dispel if you can, if you have a mind to, if you're paying attention to it. Otherwise, just keep everyone topped off. Oh. A lot of people like to tank Harlan's Suite over in this direction is because you don't have to kill all the mobs. Saves a lot of time. The AoEs are harder to dodge, of course. Yeah, like this saber. The hitbox on it kind of sucks, so you're probably going to get knocked into it and hit into one of the fire pools here. Everyone's kind of bunched up, so I'm just going to cast Efflorescence here. I've been hit by Cannon Barrage, so I'm going to run to the edges, as far away from the fight line as I can. Luckily, no one needs healing, so I don't have to stop, but even as a Druid, you have a lot of instant cast spells, so that's part of what makes you so mobile as a Druid healer. You can just cast Rejuvenation. Okay. We're running out of room to work here. I think I'm going to go ahead and cast Wild Growth, because we're all in kind of a bad spot to stand. Gonna get my heals on people, but we're doing fine. Gonna reapply Efflorescence to this zone here. Our DPS seems really low. I don't think I've ever seen Suite on normal go into so many Cannon Barrages here. I'm gonna have to Wild Growth again. I'm gonna put Cenarian Ward on this guy, the Void Elf Mage here. I think I'm gonna Life Bloom as well. He's pretty low. He's taking a whole lot of damage, just kind of standing and stuff, hoping I'll just heal him through it. Okay. That was really messy, that was really slow, but we got through it in the end. Around 80% mana by the end of the fight, which for a boss, that's okay. It's completely acceptable to use all of your mana, even for a boss fight at the end of a dungeon. Yeah, so that was pretty much it. I know I go through things a little fast, but you got the gist of what it was doing. Just make sure you keep your Rejuvenation on people, your Life Bloom on the tank. Keep an eye on people that get really low, like I'd say 40% and below, and if they're still taking damage, hit them with Swiftmend. Otherwise, just regrowth them back up. Do not rely on regrowth because it's a lot of mana for not a huge amount of healing. It's just faster than a Rejuvenation. So yeah, I think that'll cover it. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and until next time, I will see you later.